30 minutes. Okay. Then I'll cut every answer down in half. Um, no, I'm just kidding. So it's hard to, I'm going to fling a lot of stuff at you guys, and then maybe you can grab nuggets from that, because it's when someone asks me that question, I want to just sit them down and start talking about all of the different ways that is actually different than it's interesting because so many people say it's a protein shake, and why are we even saying it's a protein shake, and why is everyone even talking about protein? Because it's like protein's one macronutrient. It's kind of insane that we are having these conversations that protein's the key to all health in some weird sort of way. So Shakeology was created from one question. When this whole thing went down with meeting Isabel and meeting Carl, and Carl was like, I want to affect the lives of millions of people. And I believed him. And so when we signed the deal, and I was like, wow, I didn't think that was going to happen, because I was ready to, work on my own stuff and put my own formulas out there. And so when he asked, I want to, he has a story of not getting nutrients in his body from vegetables. I asked myself one question: what do people require right now? What do they require in this day and age, in this culture, in our culture, in America, that would be the best delivery system for an insane amount of nutrient dense foods and some of the greatest foods from around the world? How amazing would that be? So not only is it not a protein shake, it is literally a delivery system for some of the most ancient used, longest used epidemiologically of several cultures around the world, and probably studied, but unconventionally studied, more than any plants that have ever been that we've ever known about. So when if I'm going to say this quickly, it's an alchemical blend, and that is a massively different discussion. And I'll describe what alchemical is. It's a massively different discussion than just adding in a protein, adding in a macronutrient into your daily routine, right? So this is not only protein, but it's the enzymes, the digestive enzymes, it's prebiotics, probiotics, all those things that we say, but it's also hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of plant compounds that are coming in from each one of these ingredients. So when I talk of alchemy is when you have, let's say for simplicity, we'll have one ingredient, we'll have another ingredient. And a good example, because I just read this research, which is awesome. Very simple. Turmeric, we've all heard of turmeric, ancient Ayurvedic herb spice they use. It's actually medicine first, and people think it's more of a spice, but it's actually Ayurveda, which has used it for over 10,000 years. They figured out way before a lab coat that when you add a simple pepper to turmeric, the beneficial results in the body biologically increase by over 10 to 20 times. So it's almost like the pepper adds an ability to unlock and deliver more capability of that which was in the turmeric to begin with. So that's called alchemy. When you combine, in this case, plants together, it exponentially creates those plants as being better than when left alone. Okay? So Shakeology is greater than the sum of its parts. Shakeology in itself is an alchemical delivery system of these nutrient-dense foods, and it's not a dissected thing that you find on the back of your nutrition label. That's what it isn't. That's the thing that's linear, that tells your brain and informs you what's in there, but it's not telling you the whole picture, right? So do you guys understand? Does that make sense? Yes? Nods, waves, hellos. Cool. So I hope that helps. And there might be some nuggets. You know what? In fact, I had a thing the other day, and I had an interview the other day, and it just popped to me. Let me leave you with this. And if you want to record this or write it down, because someone asked a very similar question. And if I were to give one long sentence to what the difference of Shakeology is, I said this: a supplement that contains some of the greatest nutrient-dense foods in the world, carefully formulated to give your body life-enhancing potential for a healthier mind, body, and stronger performing life. That's what Shakeology is in a nutshell. Okay. Yeah, nice. A golf clap. Awesome. And another one that popped in my head a little later was an alchemical blend. Now that you know what alchemical is, alchemical blend of superfood and super nutrition designed to deliver health-giving, life-benefiting nutrients for optimal health. Okay. So when you're having discussions with people, I'm a big fan of just delivering information. I never like selling, never have. You're just delivering truth, right? So if you can take a little bit of this and learn more yourself, then you're coming in with a wealth of information that's a lot bigger than this small conversation people are having about protein shakes. And also, let me give you this, because there's so much to say on this topic. A major component of why Shakeology is so different is a very unsexy one. What I mean that is, yes, very few people have done what I've done. Unfortunately, very few people have actually gone out to farmers and found them and rediscovered some of those things and worked with people and worked with not only the indigenous farmers, but the people manufacturing that plant in the country of origin to actually see it for myself. And then the very cool thing about the success of Beachbody and the integrity that Carl and Isabel and now the whole line of people trickling down is that we have a massive team that actually goes, the quality assurance team travels around the world, right? Very expensive. And you actually don't have to do that. You can just get all of the product, all of the ingredients to the manufacturer in the States. You can do some testing and call it good. But we actually go there with our own team. So it's like an extension of what I was doing on steroids, because now we have, our own guys in lab coats, making sure that we're testing for the quality, making sure that we're testing for when I talk about alchemical, and I talk about each ingredient having its own, some of these ingredients have 200 to 300 compounds that are in that plant in order that express themselves and deliver healing and greater performance and lower stress and all of these things. 200 to 300 per ingredient times how many ingredients? So you have to be very aware and have an understanding of what it takes to grow it and then process it and dry it carefully so that it still has that signature. It still has that blueprint that is there so that it can be delivered in the plants or into the body. So most companies, unfortunately, don't necessarily live by this ethical protocol, or they act so naively that they expect the manufacturer here in the States, who have a bunch of brokers that go and gather all their ingredients that are so detached from the actual ingredient themselves, that virtually any of you could call a manufacturer up and say, hey, I want exactly what Shakeology is. Could you find me those ingredients and could you make it? And they probably could, but you're going to get subpar, barely potent, cheap ingredients, probably coming from very unsustainable sources. The FDA is kind of a sheriff, but they have no one to actually go around and check on what people are putting into a supplement. Can you imagine that if you created a nutrition company, it was based on a bunch of rules? So please put what you say you're going to put in there, and there's no one that's going to check it. No one. Can you imagine that? That this multiple billion-dollar industry, there's actually no one outside of their own company that is there to actually check on what it is in their product to be what it's supposed to be. It's insane, the amount of things that I've seen and the amount of unethical performance that I've seen many companies take. So I deliver that information because you need to know it. You need to know the lengths that we go to it's hard to talk about unless you're given an opportunity like this to really say, hey, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just to make sure that what's in that bag is supposed to be there. And what is in that bag is at the potency and the power that it's supposed to be. Okay. So that's the other side of manufacturing. It's ugly because a lot of people cheat and a lot of people are in it for the business, and a lot of people are detached from even the ingredient themselves and the people growing it in every which way. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of information there that makes Shakeology a lot different. But anyway, I think that's all I'll probably hit on that. Does that make sense? Anyone have questions around that? Questions, thoughts, concerns? Yes, good. Okay, great. It's weird because I can see you, but I can't hear you, and it's funny. But let me see. Okay, so how can we best show the value in superfoods when a lot of customers know nothing about them? It's great question, and which is really why, it's a lot of what I just said. It's a lot of the quality assurance, and it's a tricky thing because I think the best thing you can say is, does your company have their own teams going to the places of origin? Does your company test everything that comes in, every batch? Does it take a fingerprint and a blueprint of every ingredient? Do you know that? Do you know what your company's doing for the quality assurance of what is there? Do you know that there's a lot of hidden ingredients and flavoring agents that get slid in there? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to talk about it. And the best thing is, like, listen, I've always been curious about superfoods. I've always been curious about food in my adult life. I was a normal kid growing up. But once I started to get the effect of the power of superfoods, I then was forever changed. So now you guys are that as well. I was 13 doing my first cleanse, and this was a kid in Middle America, right? I was a premature kid at 3.5 pounds. I had a lot of issues growing up. I wasn't even, I was 50-50 chance of even surviving. I had underdeveloped lungs. I had a resting heart rate of 120 beats per minute. I had medications that I just quit when I was 10, didn't tell my mom, and she was a nurse. I say that because when I started to get the reality that food and just spontaneously doing a grapefruit cleanse at 13, I realized, I'm not a victim to what my body is. This is not set. That the DNA is absolutely listening and reacting to our environment in every moment. And it's not set. And it's up to us to either shut down those genetic potentials for disease or even optimal performance, or we shut those doors, we open those doors. And that is based on what we're doing every day. That's why we say it's not even a marketing thing. It might be a marketing thing a little bit for Carl, but it's actually true that getting these foods, these nutrient dense foods every day added up over a long period of time creates magnificent results. That's another reason why this isn't a one-hit wonder. This is a potentiator. Shakeology is a potentiator for great health. When I say potentiator, if you're, drinking or not taking care of yourself and not sleeping and not drinking water and not eating fresh, yummy whole foods, and then you're just drinking Shakeology and expect everything to go away, it's insane. It's insane. It will help, but it's not. It's like showing up to a forest fire with a squirt gun, you know? So you guys are in an amazing position, because for me, I can't run around and just sell Shakeology and just talk about it, because to talk about it is the genesis of why it was created. It was created so that health, the ability for your body, right? It is, if you lead with health first, you can't lose. When I created Shakeology, it was from health first. What does that body need? It needs the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrient dense. If I have an opportunity for someone to drink this shake, it's got to be packed full of nutrition, because they may not have much at all. Okay. And it's got to taste good. Unfortunately, it does. And it took me over a year just working on the taste alone. Okay. So there's a lot of care that went into, and it would have probably taken 2 weeks of flavoring if we would have allowed what flavor companies really put into flavors, which is a lot of nasty chemicals and flow agents and propylene glycols and all of these other things. So that's another reason we our vanilla story, I don't know if you guys remember that, but we were weeks away, kind of going off on tangents here, but we were weeks away of sending out the vanilla, when I had been having shouting matches with the flavor companies, telling them what our standards were, not what the FDA deems as natural. And when I realized that the FDA had different standards of natural, I realized that that's not my standard. It's not our standard. And so I thought we were getting what I told them to create, when in fact they didn't. So we tested it, of course, and the vanilla flavor came back with unwanted chemicals in there. So we had to scrap it and start all over and find someone else that could actually deliver on what we asked them to deliver on. So anyway, that's an example of the level at which this company, myself and a huge team of R&D now and quality assurance teams, and this whole team that believes in this mission, and anyone who doesn't, they just don't fit in the organization, and that happens pretty quickly. So anyway, that's that tangent. Okay, so why the quality of Shakeology is higher? I think I've probably hit on that several different ways, but if we have questions, feel free to ask me more about that. I love talking about it. How can we help communicate all over the world with the production of our Shakeology superfoods? It's a good one. It's kind of old now, I guess. The Peru video that's out there kind of gives a glimpse of how we go about ethical, sustainable. I don't even like using those words. It's just the right thing to do. You know, every superfood is a window into a often third world situation where you're creating opportunity for people in that area that wouldn't normally have that opportunity. Um, and Sasha Inchi is a great one. Sasha Inchi's grown in essentially the Amazon, because it can grow in other places too, but essentially it grows very, very good in the Amazon itself. And you can certify all these regions to grow in the way that you want them to and how they harvest. And these people often are for trying, if they're people living in the Amazon and they need a little money and they're not completely, it's very rare now that you have primitive people that don't have some trading and buying that goes on, from food or equipment or whatever. And this situation is great because the more people the more as the volumes go up, the more families we actually can take on, and those families then take on the production protocols for us. And what happens is that instead of illegal logging that can absolutely and does come into the Amazon and say, hey, could you cut down 5 of these trees for $25 for us that are over 300 years old? And for them, it's about providing for their family, so they do it. So, and they don't know that these global issues are necessarily an issue by one person or one family at a time. But in fact, the more sashinshi we allow them to grow and pay them for, we help to contribute in a small way against the deforestation in that particular situation. So this can happen on many levels, in many areas around the world. So, again, that is something near and dear to us. And, our vanilla, going back to the vanilla story, we had every opportunity to get pure vanilla from Madagascar, but we actually, one of the best places in the world to get it from, and we got it from there, but we actually chose the higher priced vanilla based on the money that we would spend on the higher priced would go towards the sustainable infrastructure of those communities. So we actually were investing into that through the production price of that vanilla in Madagascar. So those are things that we absolutely, when given the opportunity, will do. And that again is a dream of mine for the 15 years I've been traveling around the world, and to have it be something where a company like Beachbody actually has that as the right thing to do is the reason why I am still here. Because when all intents and purposes, my job was to create Shakeology and then leave. The reason why I'm not, after I started formulating in 2006 and it's 2015. How crazy is that? The reason why I'm here is because of that integrity. All of these things go back to that first question as to why Shakeology over some lame protein drink. There's no way. There's very, very, very few people on the planet in terms of companies that can back up all of these different extensions of integrity that they're actually their product kind of sits in. So I hope that kind of answers that question. I mean, it's, you pick one ingredient and I can tell you a whole different story, and that's a beautiful thing. I mean, when I was searching for moringa was one of my favorite superfoods because of its breadth of nutrients. I mean, I was sitting in the middle of Africa, just Okay, so if we're going to go there, we have to talk to the chief elders, and we're there. So, okay, I'm going to bring a filter for their water because, in my experience, no one has clean water. So I show up, I sit down. We're in this village, and we say, "Hey, this is what we want to do. You have moringa here. We'd love to use it. We'd love to pay you. We'd love to do it transparently. We need your blessing." And they have no problem. If you show up eye to eye, and this is again the difference, it's all about relationships. When you show up and you're real with someone, they're real back to you. And anyway, and that story was amazing because I was surrounded by, I love being a minority. It's awesome. It's just like so humbling to be there and to be surrounded by people who haven't even seen someone like you. Um, and so I was sitting there, I said, so at the end, I was like, "Hey, so how is your water?" And, well, we have some people who die, and, we try to go to the stream and everything else. I said, what if I were to tell you I have a filter that you can put on your jerry cans, which are the cans that they carry around, and it can filter all your water and get rid of all the bacteria. And I can show you in about 2 minutes. Anyway, then side note, I ended up showing them this filter that I do. I'm on the board of Raincatcher, and I showed them, and in 5 minutes, I had them drinking clean water, and I drank it first. And it's things like that um, is probably easier to show in a video than to. But given this situation where you guys are hanging out in someone's amazing living room, I can share these kind of things. So, I think, is it a living room? Is it a hotel, or what is this?
Here, let me see if I can unmute myself.
Oh, that's okay. I can hear you a little bit. Yeah.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here. We're renting a huge house. There's 2 mansions,
Oh, nice.
like 7 bedrooms. There's 40 of us here. So yeah,
Oh my God.
We're right on Green Bay. It's beautiful.
Oh, right on. Inside, not outside, right?
No.
Yeah. So yeah, I can appreciate it. I spent 20 years in that stuff, just to the east or west of you guys. Okay, so will Shakeology ever go organic? Good question. And now, since I laid a little foundation of the indigenous side of it, you'll have a better understanding of how I can answer this. Not all of the ingredients, but certainly a big chunk of them do come from regions like I've explained. Sometimes when there's a community that has gathered together and has had some years of maturity and has been doing things, sometimes it can work where they have a good organization and they have raised some money, and then they can certify huge amounts of land. But it's very costly. Sometimes you're in a situation where with a superfood or medicinal plant, and if you were to go organic, it changes nothing in terms of how they're actually growing it already, but it puts the burden of price directly on the farmer and the growers themselves. So it and then it also hits the bottom line of how much they have to charge in order to make up for the burden that's then hitting them to be at the organic, because you have to bring in a certifier, and there's many certifying agents that can fly in from anywhere, and you have to pay for that. And then on top of it, the amount of work that they have to do to maintain that and continue to maintain that can be heavy. When I say heavy, when you say the dollar value that's different than ours is, it's like sometimes 10 to 1 in certain situations. So if we say, hey, to get certified, it's going to cost $5,000 a year, but that $5,000 is what they live on for the entire year, for example. So, so that being said, some of our ingredients do not change in the quality at all. So if I were to say, would it be convenient that they're all organic and then we don't have to describe all of this and share this? Sure. But the reality is that it's not the case. That the assurance that you can have is that we're beyond organic, meaning that most of our ingredients are so well tested that they're beyond the level and standards that organic would be anyway. So that's the. It'd be one thing if we had a Shakeology and it was 5 ingredients. We could probably easily go into the organic world, but seeing as though it's so full of ingredients that it makes it a little trickier. I'm not saying someday that couldn't happen, but I'm just saying the quality wouldn't change, just that organic word would be on the package. So does that make sense to everyone? Again, we go back to the assurance that we're sitting with our team and the integrity that we live in, like, and act in. And again, I can just humbly say, for me, not a Beachbody thing, that I just won't be here. I mean, I have plenty of things I can do. Obviously my book just came out, and it's got me with, I never realized there was a whole nother job to kind of, be there for a book. But I thought the writing it was good, but it was hard and took time. But now actually promoting it is a whole nother thing. So anyway, that's the Shakeology questions. I guess it does have a, oh, you do say I would love to talk about the book. So perfect segue. Anyway, so yeah, this book is, I was approached by HarperCollins out of New York and said, hey, we want you to do a book. And the obvious book for me would be like, let's write it on all these superfoods and adventures and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to do it on the 20 years that I've spent around health and nutrition, and at least starting with the foundation of what health is about. And that foundation is how I formulated Shakeology. It's how I created the Ultimate Reset. It's the same foundation. And there's a lot of very powerful things to do that are very accessible and easy and not complicated with this crazy nutrition world that gives you a little truth and then adds a bunch of lies to it. And so you're completely like, oh, should I be paleo? Should I be ketogenic? Should I deplete my carbs? Should I, like, what the hell? That stuff is confusing. And the problem is that it's all true, some of it, but then it's got a bunch of lies attached to it. So like, yeah, don't eat carbs anymore and eat a bunch of protein and fat. Okay. Well, if you look at how cells are created and what they need, that's not what they need. They need carbohydrates, proteins, fats, electrolytes, and water. If you're going against the cell, you go against your whole body. I'm not saying that different parts of this stuff is true, but my book just goes after this simple but yet blown over points of how the body actually works. And I call them the 5 life forces. So I really get into a lot of details into what hydration really is and how powerful it is, to give you a view as to, if you're dehydrated, it undermines every system, every organ, and you can't get the energy that you truly are looking for. What do we all want? God, I wish I had more energy. Could you imagine that if you're dehydrated and don't even know it, that the number one cause for the number one effect of dehydration is fatigue. So I really go into and actually how to hydrate yourself. And then I go into the protein myth, and I get into essential fats, and I get into a lot of things that link together that hopefully make a lot of sense for people. And there's a big to-do list at the end and a to-do list at every chapter. And it's been cool because it's a very vulnerable thing writing the book, but it's great hearing the feedback of people just going, I can't put this down because it makes so much sense. And that was my goal. My goal was to talk to you guys in Wisconsin and to my family in Minnesota and the people that are between the West Coast and the East Coast, the people that are suffering the most, my cousins that are younger than me that have cancer. And like, I really get into the environments that we create in our bodies because we're doing that. And it all stems back to when I was a kid and I started learning this at 13, that our genetics are not set at all. And this is proven. And even the Nobel Prize was given last year to 3 researchers talking about the biological aging and the effectiveness of our telomeres, which are at the end of chromosomes, which are absolutely telling us exactly how old we are, regardless of the numbers that are clicking back and clicking through on time. And the number one thing they say that slows down aging, that they can absolutely prove without a shadow of a doubt: exercise, healthy food, and water, and lower stress and sleep. It's the same thing that we've always been saying. Okay. So I go into the book with a lot of common sense and sometimes a little wet sponge across the face that hopefully can kick people back into their instinctual living and eating. So anyway, that's a little bit on the book, and I'm super excited. And I was talking to my friend. I got to meet Rick Rubin. He's been a good friend over the years, and obviously one of the biggest music producers in the world. And it kind of dawned on me that the book is like a piece of music. Like, you just created a piece of music, and you don't want to just sit with the music. You want people to hear the music. And this book is very much something that, I've been learning for 20 years in secret rooms and with indigenous people, and I made it very simple. And now I want people to hear that music. So that's what the book is for me. I poured everything into it, and I want people to get something from it. So anyway, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question, Darin.
You guys have to go. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So you were talking about blueprint and testing and your team going out into the field to the location. Yeah. But we can say that to our customers and we can tell people that, but is there something that Beachbody puts out there to back that information up? Like, a lot of people want to see that that's like in writing, or see what the formula is or how you guys test it. But I know that that's probably, like, you don't like release that stuff, right? Or is there anything out there that like we can send people to that are questioning that, or that are, a lot of times, a lot of us are like holistic health coaches. So we know a lot about holistic nutrition, and we get just a lot of people that want whole foods and look at Shakeology as processed.
Yeah.
And so when we explain it like this and say it's very tested and go into the organic thing like you were talking about, is there anything from Beachbody that can back that up?
That's a good question. You're walking on a line, and I certainly can bring that up. It would almost, I would say it would almost be nice to get with the team and brainstorm as to how we could do that the most effective way possible. Because I don't know what the most effective way possible, because, I can say it as my truth and we can say that, but yeah, you're dealing with people that do not understand. I've spent most of my career behind the veil of how things are processed, right? So I've seen all of it. I can tell you, if you tell me a superfood and you say this company, I can tell you, I know where it came from. I know who grew it. I know what's wrong with it or what's right about it. But, maybe what we can do, because off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't know. That's a really, really good question. I've never been in that situation like you guys because I'm always the one formulating it, right? So, how about if you guys, this would be great actually. This would help me because I know how to approach this subject. Why don't you guys make a list and you can send it to me, right? So maybe Facebook me. Maybe not everyone. Maybe Sarah, maybe you just can. I'm so bad. I can't even keep up with all this stuff. I'm like out of the jungle and in the jungle of social media. It's crazy. But Sarah, maybe you can gather some of the things, like professionally speaking and from a coach perspective, what do you think you would need for people to feel that answer has been satisfied, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely come up with a list. We can absolutely brainstorm.
And then I can take that, and also I have my own way of saying that. I can take that and go directly to the team because listen, we've talked about it. We've talked about it in the sense that, you know, I've been preaching it from the beginning. Like, listen, we are absolutely and effectively doing these things. So now that we have such an amazing team, let's literally quantify it. What if it is a new video that we go into? I think that's probably off the top of my head, probably the most effective because we can cover so much. But I don't know. But I think we're at Beachbody even. I think we've talked about these kind of things to go, what is the way that we can talk about all of the stuff that we are doing that very little other companies are doing? And that alone, we don't have to call any companies out because we would just by us sharing what we're doing, you know? So.
Right, absolutely. I think
so stay.
Right? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll run that up the flagpole to the team, and then we can do that.
So, okay, one question. Does anybody have one question? Does anybody want to ask anything? Okay.
Can you touch base on the greenberry, about the lead that's in greenberry? I had someone ask me.
Oh yeah.
That's not good for you. Why would I?
Oh yeah, that. Yeah, this is a really good one actually, and it was very disturbing how that happened, because the greenberry that was tested, we already found out that the greenberry was high in lead, right? It was beyond the level of what it should have been. We discontinued that greenberry, right? Some got out. We discontinued it, and we already had reformulated it. So I assume you're talking about when Dr. Oz did his thing, in Consumer Labs. So Dr. Oz put out that, and they didn't do their homework. And that product that they were talking about wasn't even on the market anymore. We had already found it. We had already changed it. We had already reformulated, and we had already changed that ingredient supplier. So unfortunately, we just got some bad press, but in fact, it goes to our quality assurance that we already had, and we've since had an amazing relationship with Consumer Labs because we shared all of our data with them, and we said, hey, just so you know, this is what we did. And they were like, oh, we didn't know. Amazing. And so they actually have our real numbers. We openly shared that with them. Unfortunately, you know, Dr. Oz shared it, and it would be great to get a rebuttal on that. But you know, whatever, you know, it's kind of, you know, water under the bridge. So yeah, so it really goes to, again, we have such an amazing team. We caught it, we changed it. It, you know, someone took an old bag, an old formula, and then did that. So it was a little disturbing.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Darin. We really appreciate you being on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, happy Sunday and stay warm, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Are you going to be in Cancun? Will we see you there?
I don't think so. No,
Okay,
I've got a lot of this book stuff. So go get your book, please, and share it and give it away to your friends and family, and do a Amazon review. It'd be great because we're really close to getting a #1 bestseller. So I'd appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Takes your time.
Yeah, right? All right, cool. Thank you, Darin.
All right, thank you. Cheers. Bye. All right.
Yeah, bye. Thank you.
You bet.